I woke up to the sound of silence. That might not sound like much, but when you spend 3 years on a military recon ship, you get used to noise. The hum of the engines, the low rattle of the ventilation system, the footsteps of 28 crew members moving through narrow corridors at all hours. Silence, in space, is never a good sign. I opened my eyes. The ceiling above me was gray and close. The walls were gray and close. Everything was gray and close. I was in an emergency escape pod, Pod 7 to be exact. I knew this because the little stamped metal plate above my head said POD 7, Meridian Class, Emergency Survival Unit. It also said Max Occupancy 4. I was alone. The Meridian was gone. I did not let myself think about that for long. There would be time for grief later, if there was a later. Right now I had other things to focus on. I reached forward and pulled up the pod's navigation display. The screen flickered once, twice, then held steady. I was drifting at roughly 200 kilometers per hour, which in space terms is barely moving. The pod had no main drive. It had thrusters for minor corrections, a distress beacon, a basic scanner, and enough oxygen for 6 hours. That was it. That was everything I had. I ran the scanner and watched the results come in. 1 blip, 2, 5, 20, 47. 47 drive signatures, arranged around me in a rough sphere. Every single one of them was a Kethvar warship. The Kethvar are not small creatures. They stand nearly 3 meters tall, covered in overlapping scales that shift color with their mood, and they have 4 upper limbs, each ending in 6 fingers built for gripping. They have been a spacefaring civilization for roughly 4,000 years, which means they were building interstellar ships while my ancestors were still figuring out iron. They are not cruel, exactly, but they are deeply confident in their own power, and they are very, very good at war. The pod's onboard AI spoke to me then. I had named her Iris because I needed something to call her, and the default name in the manual was Unit 7 Navigation and Survival Intelligence, which nobody was ever going to say out loud. "Good morning," Iris said. "Current oxygen supply, 6 hours and 14 minutes. External sensor sweep complete. I am detecting 47 Kethvar vessels of various classifications. The largest appears to be a fleet command ship of the Gravtech designation. Would you like a full breakdown?" "Not right now," I said. "Understood. I should also mention that 3 of the 47 vessels are currently adjusting their approach vectors. They appear to be tightening the formation around us." "Of course they are," I said. I leaned back in the seat and thought for a moment. There was a version of this situation where I panicked. I could feel the edges of that version, the way you can feel the edge of a table in the dark. It was there, close, something I could fall off if I moved wrong. I chose not to move wrong. Panic would not add any oxygen to the tank. Panic would not make 47 ships disappear. Panic was, in every practical sense, a waste of time. So instead I thought about what I actually had. I had a scanner. I had a communications array, short range, but functional. I had a distress beacon that, once activated, would send my position and a basic data packet to the nearest sector command relay. The relay was roughly 11 light hours away. Any response from command would take 22 hours minimum. I had 6 hours of oxygen. The math was not encouraging. But here was the thing about the beacon. It did not just send my position. The data packet included everything the pod scanner had gathered in the last few minutes. Drive signatures, formation patterns, ship classifications, weapons array readings. Every piece of information I could see, command would see too. Not in time to help me, but in time to act on it. I activated the beacon. It sent its pulse. It was done. Then the communications array lit up. Incoming hail. I accepted it. The voice that came through was deep and slightly mechanical, filtered through a translation unit. The Kethvar have their own language, a series of resonant tones and clicks that the human ear has a hard time processing naturally. The translation units do good work, but they always add a little stiffness to the words, like reading a message that was originally written in a different language and then converted twice. "Attention, human vessel," the voice said. "You are surrounded. Power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Resistance at this point would be beneath your dignity. Do you understand the severity of your position?" There was a long pause after that. I think he expected me to start talking immediately. I did not. I let the pause sit there for a moment, the way you let tea sit before you drink it. Then I spoke. "Good morning, Commander," I said. "Or Fleet Commander, I'm guessing, given the size of that ship you're on. I am Staff Sergeant Darren Cole of the Meridian, which, as I'm sure you already know, is not here anymore. I want to make sure I understand your question correctly. You're asking if I understand the severity of my position." "That is correct," the voice said. "I do," I said. 47 ships, formation radius of roughly 800 kilometers. The largest vessel, your command ship, is positioned at the apex of the sphere, which tells me you're not just here to capture a pod. You were here for something bigger, and I'm what's left over. I understand my position very well. Another pause, shorter this time. Then you understand that you have no options, the voice said. Well, I said, that depends on how you define options. Can I leave? No. Can I fight? Also no. Can I call for help and expect it to arrive before I run out of air? Definitely not. So in that sense, you're right. I have no options that change what happens to me today. I let that land. Then I continued. But here is the thing, Commander. I already activated my beacon. About 3 minutes ago, actually. Everything your fleet is doing right now, every drive signature, every weapons array reading, every heading, all of it left this pod at light speed the moment you finish tightening your formation. Sector Command is going to know exactly where you are, not in time to help me, but in time to act. So the question I would be asking, if I were you, is not whether I understand my position. The question is whether you understand yours. The channel went quiet. Not the quiet of someone thinking about what to say. The quiet of someone who had not expected the conversation to go this way at all. I heard something in the background, a murmur, then a second voice, younger and higher, speaking in the Kethvar tongue. The translation unit caught fragments of it. Why isn't it afraid? Was one fragment. Is this a strategy? Was another. Then the channel muted on their end. I waited. Iris helpfully told me I had 5 hours and 52 minutes of oxygen remaining. Thank you, Iris, I said. You are welcome, she said. I should note that your heart rate is elevated. It would be strange if it wasn't, I said. When the channel unmuted, the fleet commander's voice was different, not louder, exactly, tighter, like a rope that has been pulled a little too hard. Human, he said, you are one soldier in a disabled pod. You have no weapons. You have no crew. You have no vessel. The information you have transmitted is minimal and will change nothing about our tactical position. You are attempting to create leverage where none exists. I'm not attempting anything, I said honestly. I'm describing what happened. The beacon went. The data went with it. That part is done. I'm not telling you this to threaten you. I'm telling you this because it's true, and I think you deserve accurate information. You speak as if you are not in danger. I'm very much in danger, I said. I just don't see how being upset about it helps either of us. Another silence, longer this time. I used the time to run a slow scan of the fleet. Some of the ships were adjusting again, not closing in, shifting sideways, like pieces on a board moved by someone who was rethinking their strategy. Let me ask you something, the fleet commander said at last. Why are you not offering information in exchange for your survival? This is the standard approach. Prisoners offer what they know. We decide what it is worth. This is how these situations work. I thought about that genuinely. It was a fair question. Because it never occurred to me, I said. Not as an insult to you. I'm not saying your offer would be bad. I'm saying the thought just didn't cross my mind. I'm a recon Marine. My job when things go wrong is to make sure command has what it needs. I already did that. What happens to me after that is a separate matter. You placed your mission above your life, the fleet commander said. He said it slowly, like he was reading words in a language he was still learning. I placed my mission before my own comfort. Yes, I said. That's a little different, but roughly yes. The younger voice came back. This time it was not muffled. Someone had unmuted themselves. Not the fleet commander. Someone else on that bridge. Are all humans like you? The voice asked. It was a genuine question. I could hear that clearly. No hostility in it, no strategy. Just real curiosity from someone who was trying to understand something that did not fit into any category they had been given. I thought about it carefully before I answered. No, I said. We're all pretty different actually. Some humans are kinder than I am, some are more stubborn, some are smarter, some have done things I would never do. We don't really come in one version. But you all share this, the young voice said. This, calmness, in a moment like this. Not all of us, I said. Some of us would be terrified right now, some would be crying, some would be angry. Those are all reasonable responses. I just happen to be wired a little differently. And honestly, I've been in enough bad situations that this one doesn't feel new. What situations? The young voice asked. Lyria, the fleet commander said sharply. The young voice went quiet, but I had caught the name. It's all right, I said. She asked a fair question. I don't mind answering. I grew up on a planet called Earth. Humans have been fighting each other on that planet for as long as we have records of. We have a long history of people standing in places where the odds were terrible, and choosing to stand anyway. Not because it was smart. Sometimes just because it mattered. After a few thousand years of that kind of history, I think it gets into the bones. You stop expecting the odds to be in your favor. You just figure out what you're going to do regardless. A long silence followed. I checked my scanner. 7 ships had now moved out of their original positions, not retreating, repositioning. But the sphere was no longer as tight as it had been. The formation was changing. The fleet commander spoke again, and this time the tightness in his voice was different. It was not the tightness of someone in control trying to stay in control. It was the tightness of someone who was genuinely unsettled and did not have a category for what they were experiencing. I have commanded this fleet for 19 years, he said. In that time I have overseen the surrender of 11 enemy vessels. I have received the capitulation of 4 station commanders, 2 ground generals, and 1 admiral. In every case, the opponent assessed their position and chose survival. This is not weakness, this is reason. It is what intelligent beings do. I understand, I said. You are telling me that you will not do this. I'm telling you, I already did what I needed to do, I said. Whether I survive or not doesn't change that. I'm not being brave, I'm just being accurate about what's already happened. Then what do you want? He asked. And I could tell from the way he asked it, that this was the question he had been building toward. The one that didn't have an obvious answer. In every other situation he had been in, the opponent wanted something, safety, a deal, mercy, time. He needed to know what I wanted so he could decide what to do with it. I thought about the question honestly. Right now, I said, I'd like a cup of coffee. I haven't had one since yesterday morning and I think better with caffeine. But setting that aside, I don't want anything from you, Commander. I'm not negotiating. I'm not asking for anything. I made my transmission. I'm going to sit here. Whatever happens next is your decision, not mine. I took myself out of the equation about 10 minutes ago. The channel went quiet for a long time. Iris told me I had 4 hours and 38 minutes of oxygen remaining. The number was beginning to feel abstract, the way large distances feel abstract. You know they are real, but your body doesn't quite process them the same way it processes something in front of your face. I watched the scanner. 8 ships, then 12. Then, over the course of about 40 minutes, 19 of the 47 vessels began pulling back. Not fast, not in a panic. Slowly, with the careful movement of a very large and very dignified creature trying to leave a room without drawing attention. The fleet commander did not speak again for a long time. When he did, his voice was controlled and formal. The earlier tightness was gone, replaced by something that sounded more official, more scripted. Staff Sergeant Cole, he said. The Kethvar fleet has no quarrel with a single disabled pod. Our mission objectives do not require your capture or destruction. We are withdrawing from this sector. Understood, I said. A corridor has been opened in our formation. Bearing 274, Mark 11. Your beacon signal will reach a relay in this direction 4 hours faster than the route you are currently broadcasting on. I looked at the scanner. He was right. There was a gap in the formation, pointed toward a better relay angle. They were not just leaving. They were making sure I could be found. Thank you, Commander, I said. A pause. You are a very strange creature, Sergeant Cole, he said. I've been told that before, I said. Usually by humans. The channel closed. I watched the scanner for the next 20 minutes. The fleet withdrew, all 47 ships. They did not leave in a rush. They left in formation, orderly, the way a fleet that has made a decision leaves, not running, just done. When the last drive signature faded from my screen, I leaned back in my seat and let out a long breath. Iris registered the drop in my heart rate and said nothing, which I appreciated. I adjusted the beacon to the new bearing, then I sat back and waited. A rescue team found me 3 hours and 41 minutes later. A small fast response cutter from the nearest station. 2 medics, a pilot, and a lieutenant who looked barely old enough to be out of training. They cycled the airlock, came inside, saw me sitting calmly with my hands folded in my lap, and seemed confused. Sergeant Cole? The lieutenant said. That's me, I said. Are you all right? I'm fine, I said. I'm very tired, and I would like coffee more than I have ever wanted anything in my life, but I'm physically fine. He looked at the scanner readout on the pod wall, the ghost trails of 47 drive signatures still on the screen. The fleet, he said. They just left? They left, I said. He didn't know what to do with that. I could see it on his face. He filed it somewhere in the back of his mind and decided to deal with it later, which was probably the correct choice. Weeks passed. I went through the debrief, which was thorough and detailed, and took 2 full days. Analysts from 3 different departments sat across from me at various points and asked me the same questions in different orders, which is the military's way of checking if you're telling the truth. I told the same story each time because it was the same story. At the end of the second day, a senior analyst, a woman with gray at her temples and the look of someone who had been reading strange reports for 30 years, sat down across from me and folded her hands and said, "Help me understand something, Sergeant. You were alone in a pod with 6 hours of air, surrounded by nearly 50 warships, and you got them to leave. How?" I thought about it. "I didn't do anything special," I said. "I was honest. I told them what had already happened. I answered their questions. I didn't pretend to be something I wasn't." She looked at me for a moment. "You didn't show fear," she said. "I felt fear," I said. "I just didn't show it because it wouldn't have helped." "That's what got to them," she said. "It wasn't a question." I thought about Ensign Lyria's voice, the genuine curiosity in it. Are all humans like you? And the fleet commander's formal withdrawal, the gap in the formation, the better beacon bearing, the small, strange gesture of a commander who had decided he did not want to be responsible for what might happen if he stayed. "I think," I said slowly, "they had a model in their heads for how a cornered creature behaves, and I didn't fit the model. That was unsettling to them, not because I was stronger, just because I was different from what they expected." The analyst nodded. She wrote something in her notes. Then she looked up. "Do you think they'll tell their people about this?" she asked. "I think they already have," I said. I was right. 8 months later, the Kethvar sent a diplomatic contact request to Sector Command. It was the first one they had ever sent. The attached message was brief and formal. It said they wished to open a channel of communication regarding mutual understanding and the clarification of human behavioral patterns. The diplomat they eventually sent was young, with scales that shifted between blue and silver when she was thinking. She spoke careful, precise translated words, and she asked questions that were genuine and curious and not at all hostile. Her name was Lyria, and the first thing she said to me, when they brought us into the same room for the first time, was this: "You told me some humans are much worse than you. I have been wondering about that ever since. I think I would like to understand what you meant." I smiled. "That," I said, "is going to take a while. You might want to sit down." She sat down, and we talked.